Today's collectible spot, we are having a look at the Hot Toys The Crow Eric Draven 1/6 scale collectible figure.
Shop for collector figures, statues, prop replicas, and more at Alter Ego Comics and earn rewards points that can be redeemed on any items, no exclusions.
When the news first hit that we were going to be getting finally a Crow figure in the Hot Toys treatment, Spot was extremely excited, as Crow really is one of my favorite movies of all time. I would think if I could probably categorize my movies in a top 10, Crow would definitely be near the top of that list. Before we, of course, have a look at the package, or of course we have a look at the figure, the package is really nice. It's reminiscent of the original Crow movie poster, with Eric Draven featured in the middle here with the doors, I think the doors at the cathedral opening up and Eric Draven in the middle there. Down below we've got the Crow symbol with the Crow font down below. The one thing that's interesting about the packaging, though, is you probably can't even tell, or maybe as you're looking at it, you probably see like little indications here on the box. If I turn it ever so slightly, there is like this impression, this secondary overlay on top of the box. I want to think it almost has the look of like feathers or some sort of scuff to the box itself. That same overlay carries over to the side of the box, and certainly on the back of the box as well, where you also see the Movie Masterpiece series cast and crew responsible for producing this figure. This particular box as well is also a shoebox style box where you'd actually have to lift the top flap off, this whole top part of the box off. And just putting that to the side, we lift this up, and not only do you have the Crow on the inside of the box, but you've got the shattered window. Somewhat ironic, you've got Eric Draven behind the window, but this is what ultimately leads to his death. Not to say the stabbing and the shooting and everything else didn't lead to his death, but the final moments of Eric Draven seen through this smashed window glass. A really nice touch. I'm certainly glad that they were able to do that with the packaging. We remove this once again, and on the inside you've got the Eric Draven figure, you've got a couple of hands, you've got of course the Crow and his guitar. Having said that, Spot's going to take himself a break. I'm going to get this opened up, and when we come back, really looking forward to having a look at this. We're going to be having a look at the Eric Draven 1/6 scale collectible figure. There's definitely more heading your way, guys. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. For your accessories, the Crow, of course, gets his own display stand featuring on the front a little placard that says Eric Draven. It would have been nice if they had actually included the actual Crow symbol there, but I still appreciate the fact that the Crow font is still present. Eric Draven also gets his fair share of additional hands. He has 2 open hands right now on the figure, but he does also come with 2 extra pairs of hands. One pair is really just closed fists that you can have displayed with him, or also for your consideration, he also comes with partially open hands. Ideal really for holding anything such as, you know, his guitar, or if he had extra firearms, he'd be able to hold those as well. One other accessory, of course, he gets is his guitar, which looks really nice. Right down to the fact that these strings are all individually strapped or adhered to the neck of the guitar. The only thing is, though, and also there is a shoulder strap that you can put on when you get it out of box. The only thing is, though, because it is a shiny black, yes, it is very susceptible to fingerprints. So I would say if you have like a little cloth or something like that, before you display him, you could kind of take a cloth and just kind of wipe away some of those extra marks. Or, really, for it being Eric Draven anyways, it might play into the fact that this guitar is, you know, is used. It does have, of course, some scuffs and stuff on it. So that is entirely your prerogative, but a nice looking guitar nonetheless. And lastly, Eric Draven would not be complete without his trusty Crow. What a nice looking piece. Now, it doesn't have any sort of articulation that I can see. It is basically just in flight mode, which is likely how you're going to be having him displayed anyways. But the detailing, as well as the individual sculpts on the feathers, really fantastic work. Now the crow, much like Eric Draven, does have his own display stand as well. You'll see like there is a little pole, a little hole underneath the crow here that you can take the additional display stand that comes with the crow, or Eric Draven for the crow specifically. He comes with a clear rod. Just going to stick that into the base there. It's a weighted base as well, so it's not going to tip over on you. And at the peg at the top there, just going to peg that into the underside of the crow. And getting it in there. It's a secure fit, and I can see why. By making a secure fit, the crow definitely isn't going to go anywhere. Which gives you something that looks like this. You can see the small base, and again, it's got a weight to it that the crow you can have just floating or looking as if it's floating. You can put it behind Eric Draven, and it looks, you know, it looks really nice having the crow just flying behind Eric Draven. And no Hot Toys piece would be complete without the 2 additional pegs that you can use for the hands. Should anything happen to the pegs currently in the sockets of the arms, you have 2 backups to rely on. A small point, sometimes overlooked when you get these things, but something very appreciative when you need these things and they break on you. You've got 2 extras, and I do like that always. That then brings us to Eric Draven himself. And I gotta say, I am thrilled with this piece. Hot Toys did an amazing job on this piece. There are a few things here and there that I probably would fix, but you know what? The overall look of him, I'm very, very happy indeed. Currently, when you get him out of packaging, Eric Draven is featured in his trench coat, which he uses for a lot of the movie. He wears this trench coat here. Luckily, you can remove it, so depending on how you want your Eric Draven displayed, you can take the jacket off as well. Before we take the jacket off, I just want to show you some of the bullet holes. There's a couple of scratches and rips in this leather material. It's a faux, looks to be a faux leather material. He's got a rip in his arm there as well. But it's a nice looking piece. Also, something I didn't realize, that it looks as if there is a wire frame that's running on the inner seam of the jacket itself. So you can just bend it, you can manipulate it ever so slightly, and you can kind of get some additional posing options out of it. If you do prefer Eric Draven, however, without his jacket, all you have to do, according to the instructions, is just take the hands off first. I can see why, because the sleeves of the jacket are so small that you don't want to start forcing it, trying to get it around the hands. So we're just going to take the hands off first, and you just kind of move the arms to the back, and should be fairly easy to take off. The only thing of caution I would say, Eric Draven also is sporting a necklace with the wedding ring on the end of the necklace there. So I would say be very careful taking the jacket off, that you don't end up pulling that by mistake. But you can just take it off, and you have Eric Draven without his jacket. Personally, my preference, this is my preferred way to have him displayed. I like the jacket, but I'm more a fan of him just with the black shirt that was heavily taped up and his black leather pants. The instructions also indicate that you can't remove this top, not to say that you would really want to, but because there is the sculpting, the additional sculpting on the wraps of his sleeves, you don't want to start messing this and taking this off. Having a look though at his face, I think they did an amazing job on it. Now, I would say the one thing I probably would have changed, looking at this piece, is the length of his hair. Face-wise, I think it's definitely there. I don't want to say it's a smile. In fact, I would say, seeing the movie, a lot of the times when Eric Draven was talking, especially to people like Tintin, he had this gritty kind of facial expression to him. So I wouldn't say he's necessarily smiling. The face is good, and I'm not too upset over the hair. I feel as if though it could be a little bit longer. Now, depending on when you watch the movie, there seems like be periods in the movie where Eric Draven's hair gets longer. And it obviously could be relative to shooting and when they are shooting different scenes. But there are certain scenes where he, like for example, his confrontation with Top Dollar in the club, his hair seemed like it was a little bit longer. Earlier into the movie, of course, it seemed a little bit shorter. This Eric Draven, the hair is really nice. I have nothing to say badly about the hair. I kind of wish it was just, though, a little bit longer. I say a little bit longer, I only really mean to about there. Aside from that, though, face-wise, I'm really happy with how it turned out. The eyes, I think, are really good. The teeth are pretty good. Now, I know the teeth were up for debate, depending on who you speak to. Some people weren't too happy with the way that the teeth were sculpted. It's the kind of thing that, looking at it, the teeth don't look too bad to me. At least I don't see a problem with the teeth. Especially by having him displayed a certain way. If you're going to be displaying him, you're probably going to be looking at him from a distance. You're not going to be getting too close of a look on the teeth. The teeth don't bother me. I feel like the hair could be a little bit longer, but as a whole, though, I think the face is really nice indeed. Eric Draven uses the thin body build, the slim body build of the Hot Toys pieces. So by sizing to perhaps some of the other Hot Toys pieces you might have in your collection, Eric Draven is a much thinner looking piece. Is he too thin? I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say so. Brandon Lee is a very thin, or was, God rest his soul, a very thin actor. So I think this build suits him. Initially, I thought the head could have been a little too big, but now I see it in hand. I don't think it's that big at all, and I think it matches. It's proportioned appropriately for how he was, certainly in the movie. And one thing, of course, we talked about before was the wedding ring around his neck. It's I'm glad they included it. It certainly was there in the movie. It does flop around and becomes a little problematic, especially when you're getting the jacket off. But it's certainly a nice, appreciated touch. I'm glad that they were able to include it in there. As for the rest of the body, of course, he's got his leather pants, which look really nice. Some of the leather pieces that I've seen from Hot Toys, these leather pants are probably one of the better looking pieces I've seen. And of course, he's got his flopped-tongued shoes, or boots that he's wearing as well, with the front tongue flopped over the boot. Some really excellent detail on there, and I'm really glad that from really head to toe, Eric Draven looks a lot like he did in the movie. And again, an absolutely gorgeous piece. The only thing that I think of revisiting things like his guitar, which we can actually put on right now. I'll just put it around the back section of Eric Draven here. The one thing I kind of wish that we had actually gotten with this figure that we didn't get was firearms. For how often Eric Draven uses firearms in the movie, I would have liked to have seen the inclusion of firearms with this particular piece. The one thing specifically I would have liked to have seen was a shotgun, especially the scene where he goes to the to get his ring back, and the scene, the very end of that scene where he puts the rings in the shotgun, and he says, "Do I smell gasoline?" Having a shotgun would have been an excellent addition to this piece. Sadly, he doesn't come with any firearms, and really his guitar is his sole accessory that he comes with, of course excluding the crow. When you start looking at articulation, well, Eric Draven does have a really nice ball joint in the neck. The only downside, though, is because they've got the articulation in the neck, when you move his head, you move his neck as well. Or really, it's not so much his neck, it's the socket right here. Right really at the base of his neck is where the ball joint is located. You get a lot of movement, but I really had hoped that the ball joint was located right underneath his head. Something that we would have gotten with like Tony Stark the Mechanic, where the head was the separate piece. I feel you could get a little more... I feel like you could get a little more poses, especially with like his head down, where it didn't involve you having to bend the whole neck down. But you can see, though, articulation on the neck, it's quite fluent, and you get quite a bit of it going from this neck section. When you get to the shoulders are on a hinge socket as well, and they rotate quite a bit out, front and back. When you start moving the arms forward, as with every Hot Toys, be mindful of the fabric, that it doesn't start bunching up. It could add to a little bit of resistance against the socket, and you know, you wouldn't want that socket to pop out. But you do get quite a bit of movement from the front and back. He does have a rotation in the bicep. He has what appears to be a double bend in the elbow, which I love so much. And he also has a rotation and bend in the hand. Not really a lot in the hand, more so you can just rotate it. When you get to the torso, the upper torso here, actually right around that tape section, has a bend crunch. Also can rotate back and forth. You also have that same idea at the waist section. And then as for the legs go forward, back, out. He has a swivel at the thigh. He has a double bend at the knee. And he has a bend rotation in the foot. So you get a lot of articulation. I wish, though, the articulation was right underneath his neck, or underneath his head, and not at the base of the neck. Despite some few hiccups, things such as maybe the length of the hair and perhaps where the articulation is in the neck, overall I'm extremely ecstatic for this piece. Eric Draven turned out very well indeed. Obviously the inclusion of the crow is a very nice touch as well. And I'm really, again, happy that I was able to pick this up. Now, Spot picked this up from the folks over at Alter Ego Comics. That's where I ended up being able to order him from. There is 2 versions available of Eric Draven. Now, Spot mentioned before about accessories, really his guitar being his only accessory. That's not really 100% true. If you get this standard version of Eric Draven, he only comes with the guitar. However, if you get the Sideshow exclusive of Eric Draven, not only do you get the guitar, but you also get the weather vane accessory as well, which was near the end of the movie, where with his final confrontation with Top Dollar. Depending on how you want to display him, having the weather vane may not be a big necessity for you, but I mean, if you want to get it with the weather vane, you can definitely head over to Sideshow Collectibles as well, and you can order this piece too. Entirely up to you which way you want to have Eric Draven, but for a Crow fan, I think this is definitely a piece you would want to add to your collection. Today's collectible spot, we're having a look at the Hot Toys Crow Eric Draven 1/6 scale collectible figure. And certainly stay tuned, guys. Spot's going to have more collectible spots heading your way. Thanks for watching, as you always do. I'll see you guys next time. Guess it's not a good day to be a bad guy.